So almost 2 years ago now, we released our very first game called The Runner. And it was quite the experience. See, at that time, I had been trying to develop games alone for like almost 7 years. And unfortunately, all those games went uncompleted. And you know, with being in it for so long, I kind of was honestly at my breaking point, ready to give up on the whole thing. But then my good friend came along and encouraged me really to try just one more time. But this time I would not be alone. And this time we would make a game, or try to make a game, in only 48 hours. And I know what you're thinking, Matthew, that is a terrible idea. You've never even completed a game and you're gonna try to do it in 48 hours? That's crazy. Well, at that time, I didn't know any better. So I said, sure, what the heck. And that was one of the single best decisions I had ever made. Let's get into it. So in order to better understand the situation, I need to jump back like 3 years. At that point in my game dev journey, like I said, I had been going all alone. I was not sharing that process with anybody. And like I said, it was a very lonely journey. I told people very loose details about it, but when anybody would ever ask me, I'd be like, yeah, it's going good, and wouldn't really get into details because it was honestly embarrassing, and yeah, I just didn't want to share it. And like I said, all the projects that I had started never got completed, with projects even lasting years. And so like I said, at that point, I was about ready to give up. And looking back at that time, I think one of the things that held me back the most was I had some kind of perfectionism issue going on. I didn't want to share anything unless it was perfect. Unfortunately, we live in an imperfect world, and that's just not possible. So I was stuck in this terrible loop. And specifically when it came to music and art, this was turned to 11. I was terrified of it. But that would all change when I met my friend Greg. See, Greg and I had been friends for a few years before the topic of game development ever even came up. As that friendship built over time, so did that trust, and I began to share my game dev journey with him. And I knew that he had done some music and dabbled in a little bit of art, but I didn't realize that that would be something that we could build upon or work together on. I just didn't know that those things could go together like they did. And Greg really kind of fit my missing pieces. You know, where I was lacking in art, he had art, and where I was lacking in music, he did music, and it kind of was just like a perfect fit. You know, as I said, I was sharing my journey with him and how lonely it was and how I was pretty much about to give up. He kind of came and was like, hey, we should do a game jam together. And I had been thinking about this a little bit as well, like a game jam would be a good idea. It'd be a great way to work together with someone and, you know, finish a project for once without that perfectionist artist, is that a thing? Perfectionist artist nagging at me that whole time. And so I gave it one more try. I gave it another try. I was like, all right, let's do this game jam. Let's make a project together. I won't be alone in this, and I won't have to worry about the things that messed me up in the past. So I said, what the heck, let's do it. So we were off. We started a game jam. I can't stress to you enough, though, how little we knew. We're not using any collaborative software like, you know, Unity Collaborate or Plastic or GitHub. We weren't using any of that. It was my project, and Greg would send all of his assets and music and art. He would just email it to me, I think, and then I would put it into the game. Like I said, this was a completely new territory for me, and I was super underprepared, but I wasn't alone anymore. You know, I had someone to take that journey with me. I absolutely would have crumbled alone, but having someone there to help me along the way changed everything. But like I said, we were severely underprepared. I was doing main programming, and you know, I had not done, you know, too much. I mean, I'd done some programming, but I was not great, to say the least. And there were a ton of issues along the way. And then throw on the 48-hourness of that game jam. It was just a recipe for stress and anxiety, but we pushed through. And we pushed and we pushed and we pushed. And it was really all coming together. You know, the time was ticking down. We really truly worked up until the last few hours. It was 3 hours and then 2 hours, and the time was ticking down. And I think the deadline was like midnight or something like that. You know, it all culminated in this one moment, like we were finished. We finished the game. You know, it was not perfect. It kind of wasn't finished, but we had a build, and we were happy with it. You could complete the game. And I had never gotten to that point before. You know, I had never seen my ideas through this far. And it all culminated in the last detail. You have to build the game You have to build the game at the end. I had never done that. It's not that I didn't know that I needed to do it, but you need to build the game out in Unity. I had no idea how to do this. And with only like a half hour left, we were like losing our minds because we had this game complete, but we didn't know how to build it out. And the time was ticking down and we missed the deadline. And that was devastating because we had something that we wanted to share, and we had finally, or I had finally completed something that I was proud of, and we missed the deadline. And all those fears and failures of perfectionism and all of those corrosive and negative feelings came flooding back. And it was not a fun time. But again, I was not alone this time. It was 1 a.m. We didn't know what we were doing, so we were like, okay, we missed the deadline. We might as well get some sleep. We'll come back to this tomorrow and we'll try to figure this out. And that's exactly what we did. The next day, we came back, and even though we missed the deadline, we figured out how to build it, figured out all the details and stuff like that, and we published it. And it was a crazy feeling. It was a feeling that I wanted to have again. There's something about releasing a game. There's something about finishing a game, coming to the finish line and seeing your ideas realized. And I had just such an immense amount of pride for myself, pride for Greg. I was so happy that we finally hit that finish line that I'd been trying to get to for 7 years. 7 years I've been trying to get to this point. And I'd finally gotten to that point. And it was such a crazy feeling. For those of you who have finished their projects, you know what I'm talking about, you know? That first one that you finish, it feels so great. And honestly, in my brain, it felt like a curse had been broken. You know, tens of hundreds of games that I'd started all came to this one point, you know? All those had to die for this one to live and get completed. And like I said, it's far from perfect. Far. But we did it. So, you know, for all of those years, I totally doubted myself and did not let anybody. But then I decided to let others help and put my pride aside for once and let others support me. And you know what it really did? It really broke down an invisible wall that I'd put up for myself. I didn't even realize it was there, but allowing others in broke that wall. And that whole process is still incredibly difficult. There's so much learning involved, and there's so many failures that need to take place. And if you're doing it alone, those failures can really take you down. They did for me. But I decided that I wasn't going to do it alone anymore. And guess what? That newfound openness helped me conquer all of those negative feelings inside of me. Those feelings of perfectionism, those feelings of toxic pride, you know, all of those negative feelings were conquered by opening up and sharing the burden. And so my advice in that would be to be open with your journey. It's really difficult to do that. I know. I was alone. I did not open up for 7 years, you know. I understand how difficult it is. But for me, it was totally worth it. And because of that, it might be worth it for you. So Greg and I joined our very first game jam, and that one decision alone would lead us to creating the studio and creating many, many more games. Thank you so much for getting this far in this video. If you enjoyed this video, we have so many more like it about my journey and other people's journey in the game dev realm. So if you want updates or to support the channel, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and I'd love to see a comment from everybody with their own journey for their first game specifically. Everybody has their game dev journey, but I'm really interested to see what your first game, how your first game came together, that feeling you had when you finally got it out there for other people to play. I would love to hear it. This was my personal journey, so it's really not meant to be for everyone. Everybody has their own way of going their own path. However, if you had some of those feelings that I had, this might be something worth looking into. There are so many great game developer communities out there like the Brackeys, Discord, Blackthorn Prod. I'll have them all in the description below, but there's so many great places to meet people to help you along your journey. And if you're interested in creating a team like we have now at Soul Engine, I have a video on that of how to make a team to help you in your journey. Because game developing is amazing and you can do it. I believe in you. You can totally do this. So don't give up. And yeah, I'll see you next time.